Ever wonder how people in the Middle Ages survived winters that would make our modern homes crumble? It sounds crazy, right? But when a massive blizzard hit Texas, millions of modern homes lost power and heat, pipes burst, and life ground to a halt. Yet, hundreds of years ago, our ancestors faced even worse winters without central heating, and they managed just fine. What did they know that we've forgotten? It turns out their survival wasn't about enduring misery. It was about clever, sustainable design that we could learn a lot from today. Let's step back in time, not to a grand castle, but to a humble medieval longhouse or a wattle-land daub cottage. Forget the drafty, miserable hovels you see in movies. Real medieval homes were engineering marvels of their time, built with one primary goal: surviving the elements using only what was available. They didn't have power grids to fail them. Their secret weapon was a combination of smart architecture, community living, and a deep understanding of natural materials. First, let's talk about the heart of the medieval home, the central hearth. This wasn't just a cozy fireplace in the corner of a room. It was a large, open fire pit right in the middle of the main living space. The genius of this design is its efficiency. The heat radiated outwards in all directions, warming the entire structure, not just one side of a room. The smoke would rise and exit through a simple hole in the roof or a louvered vent. This constant column of rising warm air created a natural ventilation system, pulling in fresh air and keeping the interior from getting too smoky. More importantly, the hearth was the center of life. It was where meals were cooked, water was heated, and tools were forged. The constant activity meant the fire was almost always burning, providing a consistent source of warmth. At night, the family would sleep on raised beds or benches around the hearth. The lingering heat from the stones and the embers would keep them warm through the night. Compare that to our modern systems. When the power goes out, our electric furnaces are useless. We're left in the cold, dark, and quiet. But the hearth was only part of the equation. The construction of the house itself was brilliant. The walls, often made of wattle and dauba, woven lattice of wood strips covered in a mix of wet soil. Clay, sand, and straw were surprisingly effective insulators. This thick, dense material had a high thermal mass. That means it would absorb the heat from the hearth during the day and slowly release it back into the home during the night, acting like a natural battery for warmth. Modern homes with thin drywall and fiberglass insulation lose heat incredibly fast once the furnace shuts off. The roofs were another key feature. Most were steeply pitched and covered in thick thatch, sometimes several feet deep. Thatch is an incredible natural insulator. It traps air, creating a barrier that keeps warm air in and cold air out. It's also waterproof when layered correctly. That steep pitch wasn't just for looks. It helped heavy snow slide off easily, preventing the roof from collapsing under the weta problem we see with modern flat or low-pitch roofs during heavy snowstorms. And what about those tiny windows you always see in reconstructions? That was intentional. Windows were small and often covered with shutters or oiled animal skins, not glass. This minimized heat loss. Large modern picture windows are beautiful, but they are a major source of heat loss, even when double glazed. Medieval builders understood that every opening was a potential leak for precious warmth. Let's think about the layout. Many medieval homes, especially in rural areas, were lawn houses. This meant the family lived under the same roof as their livestock. It might sound smelly, but it was a genius move for survival. The animals were housed at one end of the building, and the body heat they generated a cow can produce as much heat as a small heater would help warm the entire structure. A simple partition wall was often enough to separate the living quarters. This symbiotic relationship provided warmth for the humans and shelter for the animals. Our modern lives are so separated from the sources of our survival that we've lost these integrated, common-sense solutions. Daily life was also structured around warmth. People wore multiple layers of clothing made from wool, a fantastic insulator that stays warm even when damp. They spent most of their waking hours together in the main room, sharing body heat and the warmth of the hearth. There was no concept of heating an entire house with multiple private, empty rooms. Energy was focused where the people were. It was a communal effort. When we're isolated in our separate rooms in a modern house, we rely on a powerful, centralized system to keep us comfortable. When that system fails, our social isolation becomes a physical vulnerability. So, when we look back at that Texas blizzard, the comparison is stark. Modern homes are complex systems totally dependent on a fragile external power grid. They are designed for comfort under normal conditions but can fail catastrophically when those conditions change. A single point of failure, the power plant. A transmission line can render a $1 million home less livable than a 1,000-year-old cottage. The pipes froze because they were run through uninsulated exterior walls, a design flaw our ancestors would never have made. They knew better than to expose vital resources to the harshest elements. The medieval family's resilience came from their home being a self-contained, self-sufficient ecosystem. Heat was generated, stored, and conserved all within the same structure, using local natural materials and the very activities of daily life. Their survival wasn't about having superior technology. It was about having a more holistic and robust system. They didn't have a plan B because their plan A was designed not to fail. What can we learn from this? I'm not saying we should all move into thatched huts and sleep with our cows, but we can incorporate the principles of medieval survival into modern design. Think about passive heating, using sunlight and high thermal mass materials to warm our homes. Think about better insulation, smaller windows on the colder sides of the house, and more efficient, localized heating zones. We can design homes that are less dependent on a fragile grid and more resilient in the face of extreme weather, which is becoming more and more common. The wisdom of our ancestors is a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most robust. They built for survival, and in doing so, created homes that could withstand winters that bring our own sophisticated world to its knees. Their legacy isn't just in ancient ruins. It's in a timeless lesson of resilience, community, and living in harmony with the environment. Maybe the house of the future looks a little bit more like the house of the past. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey back in time fascinating, give this video a like and subscribe for more stories about the hidden wisdom of the past. Let me know in the comments what ancient survival tricks you find most impressive. Stay curious and see you next time.